what is machine learning, right? While AI is the headliner, if you see, we are talking of AI, right? AI, artificial intelligence is the headliner. It's actually machine learning that is driving a lot of activity. Okay, in fact, it's a subset of artificial intelligence. So all that we are talking in artificial intelligence is actually machine learning, and another subset of machine learning is called as deep learning. Okay, the main difference is, when we deep learning is for more complex situations, right? It's not that machine learning is not for complex, but extremely complex scenarios are handled by deep learning. So it is actually machine learning, okay, that is driving all the progress in artificial intelligence. So that's going to be the mainstay. Okay, it is through machine learning that we are going to learn artificial intelligence, right? So let's see what is this machine learning. Right? What is this machine learning? So as I said, we are trying to, there is this pattern recognition, right? Our objective is to identify pattern, because once it has identified a pattern, right, it is able to use that learning for future data and tell that this pattern is there and hence this is the likelihood. Right? That's how it is. We are determining diseases, right? Like the example I gave yesterday. Someone has got high cholesterol, high BP, high sugar, obese, drinks, smokes, and hence more likely to develop a heart disease. This is what my AA system has found. So in future, if I get any other patient or even a normal person, and if that person tells me these details like BP, sugar, cholesterol, all those details, the system will tell for past, if a person exhibited those values, that person likely ended up in a heart disease. This person is also exhibiting such values, so this person is also likely to develop the heart disease. So that's how it works. So we are in the business of making software learn this process of identifying patterns. Okay, and how we are going to do this? We are not going to do this explicitly. Okay, what is an explicit action? It is like telling you go and add a plus b and store the result in C. C equals a plus b, right? All of you have written programs, all of you have done this computation, right? I add two numbers and I store it in C. It is a very explicit instruction. You're telling the software, you're telling the computer, you add A and B and store the result in C, right? It's an explicit instruction to the computer, and the computer dutifully executes that direct instruction. Whereas in machine learning, this process of making the software learn, okay, is not through explicit programming instruction, but more through implicit means by way of annotations, by way of references. Okay, that's how we are going to make the software learn, right? So let's see an example so you will understand. Okay, if you see this, there are three types of machine learning. Okay, one is called a supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced. So let's, as I said, let's use an example to understand. So for example, I have an input data which is basically Apple, right? I am telling the computer some kind of reference is there, annotations, right? Saying this is an apple. If something like this is there, it's an apple. And then when I feed this, the computer says, the software says it's an apple because it has exhibited the characteristic. Let's say if I feed a pineapple, what will be the output? What will the software say?
I think I'll say these are apples again.
No.
No? Okay.
Anything else?
It will say that the pineapple is not an apple because it doesn't execute the characteristics of an apple.
You're telling pineapple is not an apple, right? Any other? Sorry?
It'll show an error message.
It'll show an error message. Yeah, it's basically going to show, but you're trying to understand what will be the kind of an error message. Meena, you have any thoughts? You can put it in the chat window. Any other observations?
It wouldn't give an output because it's only been taught about apples. So if you introduce a pineapple to it, it won't give an output.
It won't give, yes, it won't give an output, but it's going to give an error message, right? What is it going to say? It is going.
It's not an apple.
Yes, bang on. It's going to say it's not an apple. Because, see, look at this software. You have created the software. All that you have taught the software is only to identify an apple. Everything else is not an apple. Everything else in the world is not an apple. It is like you've been born into this earth, right? All that people have taught you is what is an apple. What will you do? You will either identify an apple and everything else you will say, no, it's not an apple. That's how you will behave, right? Yes or no? You're a human being. If all that has been taught to you is to identify an apple, you will only be able to identify an apple.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we have done to the computer. Because we have not told anything else, right? So understand, right? It's not like computer is operating at the level of human beings. Please understand that. What we are doing is we are helping the software uncover the patterns. Right? So let's say, for example, if I feed this apple, what will the output be? If I feed this apple here, what will be the output?
It's not an apple.
Right. Why it'll say it's not an apple?
Because the machine has only been taught about a specific type of apple.
Right? All of you agree with this?
Yeah.
Right? May know who just said, I'm just trying to get the name.
Anirudh.
Okay, Anirudh. Okay. So all of you understand why it'll say it's not an apple? Okay.
Yeah.
For example, yeah. So for example, if I feed an apple, but there is no green leaf, what will be the output?
It's not an apple.
Why?
Because the apple that it's been taught to recognize has a green leaf.
Yep. Do you all agree?
Yeah.
Right? That's indeed the right answer. Do you all agree? Because we have taught the software saying that apple will have this kind of red, it's more maroonish red, okay, dark red. And we are also telling that there will be a leaf and the protrusion will be to the left, right? And we are also telling it will be of this shape, right? So any other shape it will not recognize. So that's what is known as supervised learning. Okay, so there is a reference is given. So in this example, in the second example, there is no reference. So all that the software is trying to do is group it into different segments, right? So this is one segment. This is another segment, and this is another segment. If I feed a pineapple, what will be? How will it treat it?
Make another segment for it.
It will try to make another segment, or
will say it's not an apple.
Yes, of course, it's not an apple, but I'm saying how it will treat, right? See, because it's only trying to group in unsupervised because there is no reference. You're not telling, right? So all the models the software is doing is it is trying to uncover the patterns and then trying to group similar patterns together. That's all the software is trying to do. So if something new comes, it will say or probably treat it as an outlier. What is an outlier?
Something that doesn't match the pattern.
Right? Something that doesn't match. Exactly, right? So for the purpose of machine learning, right, it's important to identify patterns and it's also important to identify outliers. Suppose if an Arabic national joined this course, that individual will be an outlier, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you're there in level 10. If somebody from level 5 walks into your class, right? That individual, that level 5 student is an outlier. Right? So here we are, as you can see, we are in the process of identifying patterns and then categorizing them. That's what we do in machine learning. Our whole objective is to identify patterns. And as you can see here, we are in the business of making the software learn the process of identifying patterns. As you can see here, there is no explicit instruction. I'm just saying there is, as if there is a table, it will say this image is there and next to it, it will say it's an apple. That's all. Right? Do you understand the difference between supervised and unsupervised? Can you give any, right? Good. Can you give any examples from your everyday life? An example of supervised, unsupervised. From your everyday life. Now let's not talk, let's go to business applications a little later. From our everyday lives, please give an example.
The difference between classroom learning and an exam.
Okay. Not really, right? How would it explain?
In classroom learning, you're given a problem and you're told how to do the problem. But in an exam, you're just given a problem. You're not given the method of how to do it.
Okay, but go a little. It's at a very very basic levels, so to speaking, right? See, understand here in supervised basis a reference. I'm telling you, right? In unsupervised, there is reference is not there, and I'm trying to find. So let me give you an example, okay, so that you understand. Let's take the classroom example, right? You're all attending a class. If based on past patterns, can I spot who is the best student in the class? How does the teacher spot a best student in the class? It's based on past patterns, right? A best student, right, typically exhibits these characteristics. And I'm just giving examples. Probably goes to class on time, never misses a class, asks questions, completes home assignments, right? So on and so forth. So there is a specific pattern for someone to be a very good student in the class. So the teacher knows, right? So that is, we are talking of supervised learning. A teacher identifying the best student in the class is actually an example of supervised learning. What will be an unsupervised learning? If, let's say, the teacher were to group students, right, based on the language you speak, right, based on your mother tongue, or based on the area, in the city from which you come, right, or based on the marks you are scoring, whether you are scoring high, scoring medium, or scoring low. What is the teacher doing? The teacher is segmenting based on the patterns you exhibit.
Right.
right? Now you understand the difference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So even in this class, I have few students from the US. I have, few students from the Gulf, and I have few students from India, right? So I'm segmenting. On the other hand, if I predict who is going to be the best student or who is going to do the best project, I'm talking of supervised learning. Do you understand now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So can you give examples for supervised and unsupervised? Can you give examples, right? From things around you, right?
Alphabets.
Okay. Alphabets with respect to what?
So if I input A, then it will give an output. It will recognize the characteristic, and we get an output as A. And if I give any other alphabet, then it will say it's not the same alphabet that had been given earlier.
Right. So that's a supervised learning. What is an unsupervised learning?
If I give a few different kinds of alphabets together, then it will segment each alphabet.
Right. Okay. Fine. Any other example? How about you, Meena? Can you type it maybe in the chat window? You can bring lots of examples from economics, right? Any other example you want to give? So what I want you to do is, I want you to identify examples of supervised and unsupervised. You're all going to make presentations. I hope all of you know how to make PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So all of you have to make a PowerPoint presentation giving examples of supervised and unsupervised learning. That's what we are going to do in the next class. Okay, so you're going to identify. If you want, you go on search net, okay? Absolutely free to search Google.
A minimum of how many?
Say 3 or 4, minimum of 4.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Bring examples, right? So have examples from everyday life, especially, right? Because I want you to relate. Because machine learning happens, all around us if you start identifying. Right? And I also said, right? I also said in yesterday's class, look for patterns around you. Okay, examples of patterns around you. Right? So we don't have class tomorrow. The next class is on Thursday. So you're going to identify patterns, examples of patterns. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to identify examples of supervised and unsupervised. The other type is reinforcement. We will cover that a little later. It's basically, it learns from experiences. You first start saying something, you say you're wrong. If I give an apple, it'll say a mango. No, you're wrong. And then through the process of mistakes, corrections, I go through that cycle multiple times and then I learn. So that is based on reinforcement learning. It is like somebody punishes you. Right? You make a mistake, somebody punishes you. I'm actually punishing an algorithm. Okay. So you learn from feedback, right? Or punishment. So that is reinforcement learning. But we are going to concentrate on supervised and unsupervised. That's going to be the mainstay of. That's why I want you to identify examples. So what you are going to do is you're going to now come up with examples, and as we go on, you're going to develop AI systems for supervised learning and unsupervised learning. You're going to identify examples.
Right.
Supervised.
Supervised, correct. Right? So what is machine learning? It is the process. I am making the software learn the process of identifying patterns without explicit programming instructions. That's what is known as machine learning. Process of making software learn. Right? I make the software learn to identify patterns without explicit programming instructions. That's what is known as machine learning. Right?
Yep.
Good. So we are almost coming to the end of the class. Right? So go ahead. I want you to look for examples. Think for examples. Before you start searching Google, just think. Okay, don't go to Google straight away. Think. You've learned supervised, unsupervised. Right? I'll maybe copy this image and put it in, in the WhatsApp group, so you all can recollect. Right? So now I want you to go and look for examples so you can learn. Right? First, you think about examples from your experiences, from your memory, and then you go and Google. Okay? Any questions?